right. Greetings. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio, and podcast. I'm Steve Deace alongside Aaron McIntyre, Todd Erzin, and all of you. Brought to you by our good friends over at First Cup Coffee, the Patriot-owned coffee company with a flavor for every freedom-loving American. If you want to try them today, the roast date's right there in every bag so that you know it is shipped to you within days of being roasted. You'll get 10% off if you go to firstcup.com and use the promo code DACE. Firstcup.com, promo code DACE for 10% off, and you'll get an additional 10% off if you subscribe every month as well if you go to firstcup.com, promo code DACE. Coming up at the bottom of the hour, it's been a couple of weeks. We'll get back to buy, sell, or hold the way it was intended to. You and I did our best, Todd, but it's not quite the same thing without Aaron's personal touch on this segment. So we'll get back to that at the bottom of the hour. We'll also get back to the weekly prophet of woe and lamentation, who's been gone for a couple of weeks as well. So I'm sure, I'm sure, much like Aaron did on Monday's show, there is some pent-up energy there. And he will come out woeing and lamenting in great ordinance, I would imagine. So we'll get to that with Daniel Horowitz coming up in the final segment of the program. But before we get to all of that, let's begin as we always do with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
What happened while we were away, brought to you by, if opium is the religion of the masses, what is Uber Eats to LARPing revolutionaries? Well, yesterday we saw perhaps one of the greatest examples of higher education of my lifetime as one of the leaders of the live-action revolutionary role-playing game at Columbia University illustrated just how far evolution has come. This is Johanna Slutsky, that's her real name, a PhD candidate, that's her real title, in Marxian poetry or something like that at Columbia. Can't make this stuff up. She's here speaking on behalf of a group of commie role players holed up inside a building on campus.
Why should the university be obligated to provide food to people who've taken over a building?
Well, first of all, we're saying that they're obligated to provide food to students who pay for a meal plan here.
But you mentioned that there was a request that food and water be brought in, unless I misunderstood.
To allow it to be brought in. I mean, well, I guess it's ultimately a question of what kind of community and obligation Columbia feels it has to its students. Do you want students to die of dehydration and starvation or get severely ill, even if they disagree with you? If the answer is no, then you should allow basic, I mean, it's crazy to say because we're on an Ivy League campus, but this is like basic humanitarian aid we're asking for. Like, could people please have a glass of water?
But they did put themselves in that very deliberately, in that situation and in that position. So it seems like you're sort of saying, we want to be revolutionaries, we want to take over this building. Now, would you please bring us food and water?
Nobody's asking them to bring anything. We're asking them to not violently stop us from bringing in basic humanitarian aid.
They're stopping the delivery of food?
We are looking for a commitment from them that they will not.
Prior to the commie and Hamas orc mob laying siege to that building, Hamilton Hall, two Christian young men by the names of Rory Wilson and Charles Beck linked arms and attempted to stop the mob from breaching the building. New York police last night made mass arrests and busted up that commie encampment at Columbia. Elsewhere around the country, police at UCLA allegedly stood down last night and allowed the campus there to descend into anarchy overnight. USA Today reports that 46 of the 77 arrests at the University of Texas Austin in recent days due to the Hamas orc protests were not UT Austin students. At the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, a group of frat brothers entered into the Hamas orc encampment where they'd torn down the American flag and refused to let it be replaced by the orcs or let it touch the ground. Meanwhile, we learned last night, thanks to CBS News,
the Biden administration is considering a plan to allow some Palestinian refugees to come here to the United States. That's according to internal federal government documents that were obtained by CBS's Camilo Montoya Galvez. According to the plan, some Palestinians fleeing the war would be offered a permanent safe haven here in the U.S. And one option under consideration is to allow those who have immediate family members who are either American citizens or permanent residents to enter the country if they pass various background checks first.
Learning Arabic today. Today's phrase is, my name is no, my sign is no, my number is no, na to the ah to the no, no, no.
اسمي لا وعلامتي لا ورقمي هو لا. ناه إلى إلى لا
So the Biden administration wants to resettle refugees not even the Arab world will take. And now, thanks to Bill Malugin at Fox News, we have new data revealing the number of illegal aliens who have flown into the United States thanks to Joe Biden's Flights for Illegals program. The data also shows where the Biden administration dumped those illegals in nearly half of the top 15 cities, and 4 of the top 5 are cities either in Florida or Texas. Moving on, thousands of Louisiana residents who voted years ago to create a separate city out of a section of Baton Rouge will likely soon have their wish now that the state's Supreme Court gave a major ruling in their favor. The move to create a separate school district in the St. George region of southeastern Baton Rouge began more than a decade ago and quickly evolved into a movement to create a separate city by the same name, St. George, in the hopes that residents there would receive better services in exchange for, of course, their hard-earned tax dollars. Baton Rouge's Mayor Sharon Broome, as well as the NAACP, are against the move to create the new city, saying it'll hurt Baton Rouge's existing schools, among other things. In other news, the United Methodist Church has voted in favor of regionalization for church governance, giving the American branch of the church more autonomy, particularly on issues pertaining to the Rainbow Jihad. The move is widely seen as paving the way for allowing clergy who live in unrepentant sexual degeneracy. On the other hand, a new report from the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation, or GLAAD, just released its 19th annual report on LGBT characters in television shows for the 23-24 season, noting a decrease in representation for the second year in a row. The Where We Are on TV report noted that 468 LGBT characters appeared on TV shows last year, compared to 596 the previous year. It found that 36% of those characters would not be returning for the upcoming season. So that's obviously, I guess, an encouraging trend. And finally, we end with a masterful troll in the state of Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis announced this morning the banning of so-called lab-grown beef. You'll notice the lectern he's standing behind looks awfully familiar. For those of you listening, the lectern placard is white with the words "Save Our Beef" with a 3/4 thin circle behind the text. As I said, that should look familiar to you because it's a direct ripoff and a troll of the World Economic Forum's logo. And that's what happened while we were away.
Aaron's Montage brought to you by our friends over at Jace Medical, and had a great talk with our friends over at Jace last night. And you know what we love about these guys is they know what time it is. I'm like, give me some, you guys have been with us for well over a year now. Things can get stale in any relationship. You need to rekindle the romance. So, let me know, what could we do better? You know what they said they wanted me to do more of at Jace?
Lindsey Graham jokes?
No. Although that would have been good too.
Did you even ask?
In fact, I could see this. I could
did
see
you
this
ask Steve?
Saying that they did want more of those. I could see that actually. They're like, we really like it when you take the news of the day and incorporate Jace into it, because we created this company in response to the news of the day. In other words, bring on the smoke, man. They want you to know that this company was created by people with our value system in direct response to what they saw from public health officials during COVID and the banning of venerable medications and the smearing of them at a time that they may or may not have perhaps been among the most useful they've ever been. And now suddenly you're not to have access to them. They absolutely want to be on the vanguard of building a parallel economy in the healthcare industry, giving you more power and control over your healthcare. By the way, how many future public health officials do you think were in those protests at those Ivy League schools over the last few days?
Many.
Other than all of them.
Many.
Yeah, many. All right, so this is why you want to get hooked up with our friends at Jace Medical. Make sure there are some things you can't operate on yourself, right? There are some things that we just don't have the expertise or skill set for, that we just have to pray and hope that when we go into the system, we meet someone who's not an acolyte of the spirit of the age, but actually just a skillful professional, right? That's unavoidable, okay? But in everything where it is avoidable, take advantage of it. Make sure, for example, you have control of your own meds. Your loved one, maybe, if they're on Medicaid or Medicare, they're a complete ward of the government now when it comes to their health care. Make sure they've got control of their medications. Get them backed up at Jace Medical. Get some of the most venerable antibiotics ever made. get them backed up as well. All of this you can get via the Jace case at jacemedical.com. J-A-S-E, jacemedical.com. Use the discount code DACE at checkout, and that'll give you a discount on your order at jacemedical.com. J-A-S-E, jacemedical.com. As Aaron's montage just proved and proves to you almost every day, you simply cannot trust the people making most of the decisions around here. So take control of as much of your decision making process as you can. jacemedical.com, promo code DACE. Okay. I want to start my reaction to Aaron's montage by a personal story. And you know, I've mentioned many times over the years, my favorite episode of The Waltons is when Jim Bob decides he wants to take up smoking cigarettes. You've heard this, tell this tale how many times now, right?
Yes.
Okay. You and I are at that in-between age where we are somewhat sensitive about repeating ourselves and then about to become prideful about repeating ourselves. You know what I'm saying? That in between, like in about 5 or 10 years, we're going to go out of our way to want to repeat ourselves. But we're at that stage right now that we're still somewhat sensitive, that in-between stage. Late 40s, early 50s, right? Man, I don't want to keep saying the same things over and over again. I don't know. I think I need to keep saying the same things over and over. Like, you feel that tension? Are you feeling that yet?
Sure.
Okay, so, I decided today I didn't want to tell the whole anecdote about Grandpa Zebediah Walton and Jim Bob and the cigarettes from the Waltons and Walton smoking them all. I didn't want to do that for the 5,000th time. All right. Although I'm probably a year or two away from just telling that story every day. Okay. So let me tell you another one that's a more personal anecdote. And we have some dear friends of ours, godparents to Noah, in fact. And they went through a horrible family ordeal years ago. They were in our very first small group. They're great friends of ours to this day. And their youngest son ended up succumbing to cancer, battled it pretty much his entire life, off and on. There was hopes of remission, and then it would come back. And then he finally passed away. And that, for those of you that have been through something like that, or you know people who have, the amount of time and energy that takes within the family dynamic, I mean, it just sucks all the oxygen out of the room. And you can do your best as a parent to think that we've got other kids, we can't let them fall by the wayside, but there's time is still the one thing they're not making more of. There's only 24 hours in a day. And when you're dealing with chemo and treatments and surgeries and everything else, it's an incredible ordeal. And the oldest son kind of felt over the years that he was kind of being left behind, and got involved in some of the behaviors that a young man can get involved in, particularly when it comes to substance abuse, when he starts to feel that way and starts, self-medicating, feels like he's owed something. And he is, in this case, he is kind of owed something. He wants the time and attention of his parents, right? And it's not like they're neglecting him on purpose. They're trying to save his brother's life at the exact same time, which he also wants to have happen too. So he's conflicted about it too, right? That's kind of where the self-medication comes in. On one hand, you want to feel justified in your bitterness that I'm not getting the kind of attention I should get. But then on the other hand, you love your little brother and you're obsessed with his health and him getting better. And you're fixated on it too. And so your conscience is now conflicted. On one hand, it feels justified in being bitter and rebellious. And then on the other hand, you feel like you're kind of ashamed that you're doing that, because the impetus for it is, well, my parents are trying to save my brother's life. It's not like they're terrible people. And so that conflict now, you start self-medicating to handle that conflict. Anybody know a story like this in a family, been through this with a family that has endured this kind of ordeal? And even after the younger brother passes away, the older brother spends some time in and out. A lot of times these are minor offenses, this amount of pot or something like that. And eventually, though, you get enough slaps on the wrist and you commit enough of these misdemeanors, that they start, escalating the penalties, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's in another state one night, and we're in our small group, and the call comes in, and we had been with them when they had gotten this call before, and but this time it's even more serious now. He's been charged with felony possession. He could be in jail for an indeterminate amount of time. He's in jail right now. All right, and so as they've done every previous time, the parents jump up because now they're dealing with their own guilt. On some level, they kind of feel like they did leave their oldest son behind. But again, what else were they supposed to do? They're trying to save the life of his brother, and there's only 24 hours in a day, right? You know what I mean? I mean, this is East of Eden stuff, where no one's going to walk out of here going 5 for 5 every single day at the plate. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You can be the best there is, man, but when you're facing this kind of an ordeal as a family, you are not going to tiptoe between the raindrops. Mistakes are going to be made. And they're about to make another mistake. They immediately get the call from the authorities. They immediately jump up. They're going to drive over to another state here now, 7, 8 o'clock at night, bail them out. The rest of our small group got together and barricaded them from getting outside of our front door to leave. Wouldn't let him go. And we just said, listen, he's a grown man now. If you think you made mistakes, you want to ask for his forgiveness on things you could have done better, then do that, okay? But the statute of limitations on mom and dad didn't do enough for me has expired now. He is a grown man. He must accept responsibility for his actions now. He's out on his own. He did this to himself. You're getting in the way of the Lord's discipline. The son needs to eat some pig pods. He needs to be humbled. He needs to be disciplined. He needs to be made aware that he's not a victim in the traditional sense of the word, but that he's victimizing himself by believing that he is. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it was very hard. It was tense at first. I mean, I don't want to make it look like they stood right. Oh, thank you guys for doing that. It wasn't like that. It was tense at first. But eventually we stalled them long enough that it was just too late to drive over to another state. And so they had no choice but to at least leave him in there in the clink overnight. And that first night was the hardest part. Once they got over that, then they kind of realized, he's got to wrestle with these demons on his own. He's got to have his own individual relationship with God. He's got to have his own individual purpose. He's a man now, and he's got to take ownership of his stuff. And yeah, we all have to ask for forgiveness for the parts of other people's problems that we contributed to. But ultimately, no one gets into heaven and because, hey, forgive me of my sins, Lord, because of all the bad stuff that was done to me. That's not how it works, right? Right. And why do I tell you this story? Because I want to give you the Paul Harvey rest of the story, if you don't mind. That moment was about 13, 14 years ago. Today, that young man is a pastor. He preaches the word. He actually goes all over the country and all over the world doing it. He's a pastor now. And he'll tell you today, wasn't a big fan of his parents those nights they left him over there in that jail and didn't come and get him right away. But he'll tell you today now, many years later, that was the moment that he hit rock bottom. That was the moment when he had to come to grips with the seeds that had been planted in his life, that he was planting, that he was watering. And he had to confront his own demons. He needed accountability. I promise you the only thing that will be worse than the patriarchy will be the matriarchy, as I said yesterday with that ridiculous clip of Drew Barrymore and Kamala Harris. As our colleague Jason Whitlock says frequently, too many young men are overmothered and underfathered. But this, I would actually take Jason's point and expand it further. This is true of the entire culture. And so things that, like we had Rick Burgess from Rick and Bubba on yesterday, what did he keep saying? You have to communicate to men in a certain way, right? Like before you ask a man to do anything great, do you say something like, just go out there and do your best. You got this. Nobody does that. That doesn't inspire any group of men to any form of greatness in any language, custom, time, tradition, and history ever, right? Doesn't work. But that's kind of the way we corporately communicate as a culture, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And so therefore, what is masculine discipline can often be thought of as harsh. And here's the thing. It is. It was harsh to leave their son over there in that jail cell. We had no idea what would happen. Would he get assaulted? Would he get beat up? But ultimately, without that harsh rebuke of discipline, he might still be on the road that he was on. That harsh rebuke of discipline put him on a narrow road instead. Now, why do I bring up this story? Because as you watch these riots and disturbances and melees happening on these campuses, let me tell you what I would do if, well, specifically the ones in blue states. Let me tell you what I would do in those situations. Nothing. Nothing. My favorite video of everything Aaron just showed was the one at UCLA. Nobody did anything. Why? The agitators are Marxists and Nazis. Demonic ideologies. They also represent the way they were taught and nurtured by the administrations at all of these institutions. And they reflect the voting patterns of the states in which these are taking place. The worst thing that we could do, in my opinion, would be to tame this on some level, but then let it remain institutionally in place. What will happen if that occurs? France, England, Ireland, Scotland, Belgium, Holland. Western Europe will occur. Western Europe will occur. If years ago, around the time that the millennials were being born, our boomer parents in the school administrations thought it was a great idea. We don't want the kids having as much premarital sex and having as many kids out of wedlock as we did, coming out of the hippie and free love era and the acid rock era. So what if we gave all the kids condoms and birth control so that we would, we couldn't stop them, obviously, from, mating like minxes. So what if we just, put a condom on it, right? We had passed out condoms in schools and everything else. You know what ended up happening? Because you put a condom on human nature and didn't address it, STDs exploded. In the 90s and 2000s, literally over a dozen new strains of STDs that previously did not exist came into being. All of a sudden now Oprah's doing episodes. Remember those episodes with the bracelet parties? Girls show up with the bracelets. Hey, I'll put out oral sex, anal sex. You remember these stories?
That I don't remember.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Go look that stuff up. Just maybe not on a work computer. Because we just took human nature in its most craven instincts. We didn't confront it. We tamed it and then left it institutionally in place. And now the end result is it's a victory. It's a victory when there's only 468 examples of complete and total sexual depravity on network television in the last TV season, right? That's progress now, we're calling that, and it is, but that's what we're calling progress. 30 years ago, there wouldn't have been 46. But we decided we're not going to confront human nature anymore. We're going to tame it. We're going to institutionalize it. And now it's embedded everywhere. If you do that with these ideologies, you're welcome to be here on campus on the dime of the American people in these subsidized universities, as provided you don't ask and don't tell your Marxism and Nazism. We've done that before, right?
Yeah.
The Borg won't stay on Deck 16. The American people need to see what they have wrought. They need to see more scenes like UCLA. UCLA is the most honest video Aaron showed in his montage. It is what these worldviews absolutely represent. I applaud the police for standing down, no matter what their reason for it was. I would no more send any police in there. I wouldn't want my son, who was a cop. First of all, I wouldn't want my son to be a cop in a blue state anyway. But I wouldn't want him any more in between Marxists and Nazis than I'd want to send him over into the Middle East involved in some internecine feud between rival jihadi factions and gangs. Nope. Do not be deceived. God will not be mocked. A man will always reap what he sows. This is the laws of sowing and reaping. This is Romans 1, given over to your own depraved minds. What happened, what Aaron mentioned with the Methodist Church is the judgment of God. You're watching Revelation 2:5. Either go back to the former things. By the way, you guys know where the name Methodist comes from? John and his brother Charles Wesley were so obsessed with the meticulous intricacies and specifics of the Bible that they were nicknamed Bible moths when they were younger. That was a put down, and that's what Methodist meant. The intrinsic method of living out what it means to be Christian. There was a book written in the 1940s, England before and after Wesley, how the entire culture changed because of his strict adherence to fundamentalism at the time. I think Charles Wesley wrote Christmas carols. I think Charles Wesley wrote Hark the Herald Angels Sing, if memory serves, the brother. That's the lineage of the church Aaron just highlighted for you. No, this is not, oh no, they're going to lose their call. They lost their calling. Jesus has already come to them, like he said in Revelation 2:5 when he warns the church, go back and do what you did before, otherwise I will come to you and I will take away your lampstand. You have seen the lampstand is taken away. That scripture is fulfilled in our hearing. This is judgment. They are getting their reward in full. They are getting what they deserve. Not one time in the scriptures, Jesus preaches more on hell than anybody does in the entire Bible. And not once in any of the Gospels does he ever go back and plead with someone who rejects him. Not once does he ever chase someone who turns his back on them. Not a single time. Not once. And in fact, when that happens, he will even turn to his followers instead and test them. Because that's how a father acts. We're just not used to that. Men understand, we just don't have a lot of them anymore, that sometimes you look the other way when the guy's about to confront the bully, because that bully, he knows he's a bully too, right? Mm-hmm. He knows that bully needs popped in the mouth, because it'll be for his own good. It'll put him on a different path the rest of his life, right? Sure. And so you look the other way so that the law of the jungle here is upheld. Indeed. But then, now, if someone's going to get seriously hurt, then as the adult, you step in, right? But you just act like, I didn't see it, man. I don't know. But looks to me like you got what was coming to you. See, these things all seem harsh to us today. But these instincts are how this civilization even was established in the first place and lasted as long as it has. Get out of the way. Take yes for an answer. Let America see on the very campuses that nurture, disciple, indoctrinate these demonic ideologies. If that's not divine judgment, I don't even know what it looks like. That's as simple as 2 + 2 is 4 to me. E.T. is phoning home. Pick up the phone and let it be answered. They deserve what is happening to them. This is their reward in full. Get out of the way. And let the American people see the true harvest of what's been planted in our culture, because that's what it will take to uproot it. If we tame it and use phrases like, this is hate speech, you'll be Europe in no time. Most emergencies come without warning. And when the next one comes, you may not have time to pack and prepare. You need to make sure you're ready now before the next emergency strikes, otherwise known as completely tailored, manufactured, contrived event in order to push the agenda. Anyway, secure those supplies right now at my website, preparewithdace.com. Start with a 4-week emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply, helping millions of Americans prepare. Since 2008, they're the experts in self-reliance. Their 4-week emergency food kits offer over 2,000 plus calories per day. That's breakfast, lunch, dinner, even drinks and snacks. Protected by heavy-duty 4-layer packaging, these kits last up to 25 years, sealed inside rugged handled buckets. They are made to grab quickly. If you want to take advantage of this right now, you can save $50 per kit right now at preparewithdace.com. Save $50 per kit right now at preparewithdace.com. They ship fast and free in unmarked boxes. Save $50 per kit right now at preparewithdace.com. I want to go back to this point, if you guys don't mind. I think there's a few more things about this that need to be said. As Todd says consistently, we're entirely too comfortable. And it's to the point now that the minute we see any sign of struggle, conflict, anything that might create a tension, no, make it go away. Stop. The idea that we're going to be able to preserve this once exceptional country for future generations without anything short of the same pledge that founded this country in the first generation, lives, fortunes, and sacred honors, is not true. There will be no convenient way to do this. I think that's what the allure of we're just going to vote our way out of it. We're just going to we're going to Fox News our way out of this. That's convenient. That's easy. I'm retired. I sit home all day. Just watch Fox News and get pissed off. Run for school board. You've got plenty of time. You're retired. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Just find the path. We've even got a theology now. I love Israel. I think God loves Israel. But now we've taken that theology to the point of it's okay if you don't protect your own borders, provided you provided Israel with the latest missile defense systems. Like, God will guard your open borders, and all the criminals will instantly be parted like the Red Sea because you made sure Israel's got the latest missile defense. No, that's not the way this works. But that's an easy thing. It's easy for Mike Johnson to just get more money for Israel. Not easy for Mike Johnson to lead and try to actually do something for our own country. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we're offered a false choice. We keep looking for an easy path to things. There isn't one. There isn't one. The only way out is through. What this country needs, there's a meme. I think I shared it with you guys. You guys have seen this one before. It's with the grandpa on the in his chair.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, and it's got the adorable little granddaughter. Tell us about the good old days. And he makes some like cranky answer, and the grandson's at his feet. What a legend, right? Okay. And so in this one, a future granddaughter of Ron DeSantis crawls up on Grandpa DeSantis's lap and says, "Hey, Grandpa, back in the day when you were governor and all the Islamic Marxists were protesting, what did you do?" And Grandpa DeSantis responds, I gassed those sons of bitches. And the grandson's at his feet. He's like, what a legend. Okay. See, we need this contrast. The American people in suburbs of Philadelphia, in suburbs of Atlanta, in suburbs of Milwaukee, in suburbs of Phoenix, where they still think they can elect governors for open borders and it won't be their kids overdosing to death on fentanyl next, where they still think it won't be their daughters getting trafficked next, where they still think it won't be their kids who next can't afford a used car, buy a house. I know these people. I live in these neighborhoods. You live in these neighborhoods. You live in these neighborhoods. These are our neighbors. We know these people. They are comfortably numb. And they're going to decide the future of this thing here in about 185 days. They need to be shaken out of their comfort. You know what won the civil rights movement in the end? people were gathering around their TVs for the first time as families over dinner and turning on Roger Mudd and Walter Cronkite and Dan Chancellor in the nightly news. And they're watching blacks get high-pressure water hosed right in the face in the South. And being forced to witness that and to see it. Hey, man, maybe they didn't want their daughter dating a black guy either. Maybe they didn't want to live next door to black people either, but their kids didn't grow up with that inherent prejudice. This is their worldviews are now being formed in the now, right? And their worldviews are being formed by watching people get high pressure water hosed to the face because of the color of their skin. And they looked at their parents over the TV dinners while they were watching this and said, "Mommy, Daddy, are we going to do something about that?" And eventually, Mommy and Daddy got tired enough of that question that they said to their members of Congress and their legislatures, "Make that end. Make it end." Bernard Nathanson is one of the reasons why we have abortion in America. He's one of the founders. He was one of the founders of NARAL, the organization that actually sued in Roe v. Wade. By the time he dies, he is at the forefront of the pro-life movement. He's one of the engineers of the 80s pro-life polemic Silent Scream. Confirmed in the Catholic Church. Why? Well, a few years into his abortion business in New York, this little thing called 3D and 4-dimensional technology and sonograms, this technology shows up. And now he's getting a real good look at what look like pretty clear human babies in the womb and what he's been doing to them. And his conscience is convicted and pricked. And he goes the other way now. Do you see a trend here? Nothing good comes easy. Everything requires effort, sacrifice, risk. At least anything worthwhile does. We live in an era where I was concerned. I used to be concerned I would come home and catch my son when having sex with his girlfriend. Now I can't get my son to ask a girl out on a date. And it's more likely that he's on Snapchat with the next episode of To Catch a Predator being wooed by some creepy dude who we should have executed already. After a fair trial, of course. Of course.
Of course.
Of course. Why? Too passive. See, we need a trial. The trial of Donald Trump ain't going to do it. No one's watching. And the only people that care are the people who think, whose hatred of Trump is what their world revolves around, and whose adulation of Trump is what their world revolves around. But again, in these suburbs, they're going to decide all of that. They're not watching. They don't care. They don't like the guy. Donald Trump could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, wouldn't change their opinion. They could shoot Donald Trump on Fifth Avenue, wouldn't change their opinion. It's another Pleasant Valley Sunday. So you need to give them a trial to watch that will hit home. Show them the universities where they sent their kids to school. Show them the contrast. Just like we saw the homeschool population in the country skyrocket after the COVID lockdowns and a bunch of people started being subjected to what their kids were actually learning. This needs to be seen. The Fox News solution this morning was bipartisan legislation against anti-Semitism. Nope. Now, I think anti-Semitism is demonic. I can't think of a single culture that once it descended into anti-Semitism, the story ended well. You and I were talking about that last week.
Yes.
There isn't one. But no. Why is this anti-Semitism on the campuses? Well, I'll tell you why. By and large, it's because a bunch of rich, secular Jews who wouldn't know a Torah or a Pentateuch if it gave them a stock tip. And if you're a Christian of any regard, you frankly know more about Moses and the law and the prophets than any of them do. A bunch of rich secular Jews who were convinced that the Christians who actually loved their country and their heritage were the real villains funded all of this at these schools, where they are alums. And now they're just aghast. I can't believe this. We kicked God out. You wanted them to. You paid them to do it. What did you think would take its place? The new gods, which are really the old ones. These are harsh lessons. They must be learned. I needed to learn, why am I 380 pounds? And no, it's really not because I'm self-medicating, because Dave smacked me around too much as a kid. It's because I'm lazy and eat too much bad food. And I need to stop those things and reverse trends. Again, this is how dads talk. Just many of us don't have one of those right now. So it seems harsh, shrill. And it is. Did I claim it was not?
No.
Nope. But it's good. And it's necessary. A lot of people who are Jewish in name only, who wouldn't know a Seder meal from a cedar tree, funded this. Funded these Nazis. Let them in. We're tolerant. We're progressive. Not any different than the sweater-vested Christian pastor who had nothing to say to your congregation the day Roe v. Wade was overturned, but wants you to know they're going to take all of the Palestinian refugees Joe Biden can offer, which I'm sure we've screened them all, right? I'm sure we've screened them all. It's funny, I'm reading through Ezra right now in my Bible in a day. Don't do that. Especially when you come to the part where Ezra says, yeah, we're not going to actually kickstart this thing called Judaism and Yahweh worship again. You guys got to get rid of all your foreign wives, man, and foreign kids. They've all got to get out of here. And this is how we ended up here in the first place. They got to go. Harsh, shrill, but necessary. Since 9/11, we have taken in the total population that would be the 36th largest state in the union of people from Islamist countries. Let's say we screen them all. We didn't. Let's say we have a 99% hit rate in those screenings. We don't. 1% of that would be 3,600 people. $20 people pulled off 9/11. We don't have time for games. We don't have time for bleeding hearts. We are on the edge of a knife as a civilization here, about to lose the whole damn thing. And a lot of it is because we've ignored our Heavenly Father and we didn't have an earthly father worth spit to teach us discipline. That sometimes harsh is good, sometimes shrill is needed. No is a loving word. Here's my new rule of thumb. If Middle Eastern countries aren't going to take these people, their own people, we're not. That's all there is. There isn't any more. No. The amount of people Joe Biden's imported and sent to these cities across the country, flat out traitorous and every other bad word you could think of. Nothing less than that. No. No. People need to see we don't have these problems in Florida because we tear gas those sons of bitches. We get rid of those people off our boards of regents. We purge them. We even create our own universities to compete with them. And in California, they have Yemen. We need to see this. We need to feel it, experience it. Otherwise, we won't learn nothing. And if we won't learn nothing, well, we all know the George Santayana axiom about those who have not learned from history are doomed to repeat it. Gentlemen, I'll find out what you think here in a moment. After a word from Constitution Wealth, the Patriots' choice in wealth management, let me ask you something. Do you avoid shopping with entities that offend your values? Well, that can be difficult to do, but I know some of you, a lot of you, are trying to do that these days where you can. Why not apply the same thing to your investments in your retirement? Our friends at Constitution Wealth can help you with that. They can help you to purge ESG, DEI, all this other demonic stuff I was just talking about. Purge it out of your portfolio. And instead, put your money to good use in the spiritual battle happening in our culture right now. If you want to learn more and you want to work with an advisor who shares your values, and why wouldn't you? Just go to constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Sign up for a free consultation today. constitutionwealth.com/blaze for a free consultation today at constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
I think there's one important question, because for once I have compassion for your inbox. You were, and all of us to varying degrees, been very critical of not stopping the riots during the Summer of Love, George Floyd. What's the difference here? Why are you saying college campuses we need to let them burn when you were very critical of all caps law and order tweets back in 2020?
Because the college campuses are the breeding grounds for all of this. They're the origin places of all of this. And Trump, by the way, not acting to preserve our cities from this, that was a moment to do the same contrast that I just suggested Florida could have done. Hey, you know what? We're not going to have this when I'm president because we're not putting up with these elements. We're purging them. We're arresting them. What happened in Chaz was birthed at the university populations. That is the epicenter of all of this. And now, since Trump didn't act, no critical mass has been built. So we need a critical mass to show people the contrast again. I'm going to tell you right now, if Trump had acted the way he should have, a lot less likely this kind of stuff would be happening right now. In fact, the precedent would already be set. People would have demanded Joe Biden send the... You know what? No, they would not have. Because if Trump had acted, he'd be president right now. So there would be no worries about what Joe Biden's mental state is, and he'd be free to sit in the rocking chair at the nursing home where he belongs. Are you good? I'm good. Hour 2 is next. Right, back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. Steve Deace here with Todd Erzin, Aaron McIntyre, and all of you. And you can all, though hopefully not all at once, let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. Steve@stevedeace.com is the email address. Like us on Facebook, me, we, and Gab. Follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, TikTok. And then also, if you listen via the podcast, if you wouldn't mind doing this, leave us a 5-star review if you like the show. Hit subscribe, or in the case of iTunes, follow. And that way, every time you do, or we do a brand new episode, it will show up in your podcast feed every single time. And thanks to all of you that have done that for us as well. Thanks to our friends at Patriot Mobile for bringing you Buy, Sell, or Hold this week. For 10 years now, they have been America's only American mobile phone provider. They are at the vanguard of the parallel economy, and they offer dependable nationwide coverage, giving you the ability to access all 3 of their major networks whenever you need to switch for free. That's just part of the outstanding customer service they have at Patriot Mobile. You don't have to, at least when it comes to your mobile phone, you don't have to directly fund the people that hate you anymore. They find the best plan that fits you and your needs. If you want to keep your phone, you can when you switch. If you want to upgrade your phone, you can do that too. Want to keep your number, change your number, they'll customize it for you the best they know how. Make the switch today and get a free activation with the offer code STEVE when you go to patriotmobile.com/Steve. Again, that's patriotmobile.com/Steve. One more time, patriotmobile.com/Steve. Use the offer code STEVE, or you can call them at 972-PATRIOT. And with that, it is time for Buy, Sell, or Hold, as it was meant to be. You have made the submissions to Aaron. He has selected the ones that we will consider Then we'll get through as many of these as we can. The ones we couldn't get to, we will tackle in the overtime for subscribers today at blazetv.com/Deace. Todd, you and I will decide, are we going to buy? Are we going to sell? If at any point in time, however, we decide to use the word hold, if we call upon the hold, then the penalty for you ducking the question, punking out, and violating the due code is that, you know how we often talk about where are the men at on this show? You've got to find out firsthand what Lindsey Graham means when he says, where are all the men at? All right? Your thoughts?
It's quite a voyage of discovery, Steve.
I bring that up. Anastasia, my oldest daughter, texted me this a little while ago. Someone commented on a clip I posted of you on your Instagram yesterday and said, you ask where the men are more than Lindsey Graham does. I thought that was absolute greatness. All right, Aaron, go ahead.
So just before we get going here off the top, there was someone this week, I'm not going to single them out by saying their username. So it's just a good reminder for everyone playing buy, sell, or hold. Someone submitted a submission that was 900 words in length. I put it into a script timer. It would have taken me 5 minutes to read.
Wow.
Just a friendly, I'm sure it was all good. I stopped reading after I clicked on the tweet and it expanded like, you can't even see it, like this long. The pithier, the better. The pithier, the better. If it takes me more than 10 seconds to read through it, I'm probably not going to take this unless it's a good list. Second thing is buy, sell, or hold. You're putting out submissions about anything in the future or anything right now that are bold predictions, bold states of being, and worded in clever ways. That's basically a good kind of rule of thumb for buy, sell, or hold. Quick point of order before we get going today. We will begin, though, with this list from Tiny Johnny, and we are starting off with a bang. Top 10 U.S. shows if Hamas produced them. Number 10, Homicide, Jews on the Street.
Oh, my.
Number 9, Family Ties, Up the Jews.
Oh, my.
Number 8, Better Call Saul, to Islam. Instead of Smallville, number 7 is Sandville.
Sandville.
Number 6, The Mechalorian.
Oh, The Mechalorian.
Number 5, Breaking Good. I don't know. You could take that or leave it.
Number 4 is
number
genius.
4, Sect in the City. SECT.
That's genius.
That's wonderful.
Yes, it is.
Number 3 is Buffy the Hebrew Slayer.
Oh gosh, these are good.
Number 2, it's always Sunni and Saudi Arabia. And then number 1 might be my favorite one. Instead of Curb Your Enthusiasm, it's Curb Your Judaism.
Oh my gosh.
Well done, Tiny Johnny.
Nice job.
You're going to make somebody follow that?
Yeah.
I mean, that
was like its own theology Thursday.
It's only 5 after the hour. I mean, there's 25 minutes of submissions that I can't believe will even approach that. That is so on target. Wow. Buy everything.
Yes.
Buy everything. Yeah.
Jay Ford is next. The GOP is more upset with Kristi Noem killing a dog than they are with Trump being okay with more baby killings.
Yes.
No, this is true. But it's not that they're okay with baby killings. It's that Trump matters more than the baby killings. Trump is king. You have to, I think I say things at times and people assume every opinion I have is a preference and not an analysis. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like I'm still getting emails from people. I'm not advocating Tulsi Gabbard for VP. I'm just analyzing and predicting that she will be. It's an analysis. It's not a preference. And Trump is king. So that's not an analysis, or it's not a preference. It's an analysis. I've already got a king, so I don't need another one. I'm good on that front. But a lot of people in the country want a king, and a lot of people throughout history have wanted one. So that's nothing new. And I mean, heck, we almost made our first president into a king after defeating a king. So it's not a new part of the human condition to want a king, but Trump is king. The people have the king they want. And so you just have to understand. I'm not saying you have to agree with it, or even that you shouldn't. I, in fact, don't even have an opinion on it, other than I'm not in the king finding business. I've got one. I'm good on the king front. I am looking for a president, though, one who could preferably make better decisions than the one that we have now is making. So I'm in the market for that. I'm not in the king market If you all are, you can debate amongst yourselves of who should be your king and which king is good. I've got one, and he's always good. But in practical terms, Donald Trump is not the Republican nominee for president. He is king.
All right, moving on. We go to Rhonda Judy, who says Ron DeSantis and Ryan Walters will be the only two officials that will not comply with Biden's rewrite of Title IX. Did you see what Ryan Walters just tweeted about a half an hour ago? The Satanic Temple is belly aching about whether or not they're going to be allowed into Oklahoma schools as chaplains.
Yeah.
And Ryan Walters said, Satanists are not welcome in Oklahoma schools, but they are welcome to go to hell. How hard is that?
Nice.
Yeah.
It's really easy. He makes it look easy.
Yes.
Well, it helps when you believe things.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, like my buddy Chip Roy made a speech at Heritage yesterday. He says, I keep being told we can't do anything in the Congress because we have a slim majority. No one points out the slim majority Chuck Schumer has in the Senate. I think it's 1 seat, isn't it? It's no more than 2, okay, that Schumer has. And no one's saying, hey, Schumer can't get anything done. He's got a slim majority. Well, and I know Chip knows this. He's using an argumentation technique called begging the question, right? But what he's begging and pointing out subtly is that they have a real movement. They have a real party, and they are united by real shared principles. Now, all of those things are demonic. All of them are. Their movement's demonic, their party's a demonic construct, and the principles that they're united around are demonic. However, any movement, including a demonic one, is going to beat a non-movement every single time. We don't have a movement. We have a collage, a collection of interests and varying priorities and beliefs that are only united around a shared disdain for the other side. But you can't govern with that. You simply can't. Here's the thing. Yeah, I'll say it. It's not as if I haven't been just shish-kebabbing shibboleths since the start of the show, right? There's a lot of people, that are going to vote. In fact, I would go so far as to say most of the people that are going to vote for Donald Trump here 26 days from yesterday, or 26 weeks from yesterday, most of them don't agree with us on these things and are actually ashamed of Ryan Walters and Ron DeSantis. Well, we have to do what the Constitution says. Well, let everybody play that wants to play. How do I know this? Look at their public officials. I guess you could just tell me that what's Trump going to probably conservatively get? 75 million votes? Conservatively. 75 million, fair?
Yeah.
Okay, conservatively he'll get that. I guess you could tell me a majority of those 75 million people that will vote for Trump here in about 26 weeks are all simultaneously schizophrenic. Whatever helps you to cope, sleep at night, and turn Jesse Waters on again this evening, or Sean Hannity, whatever helps you get through these times. YOLO. All right. So if believing that the majority of those 75 million people that will vote for Trump are just all simultaneously schizophrenic is better for you than accepting the truth that they're voting for people who are a reflection of themselves, including Lindsey Graham as a reflection of South Carolina. Look at South Carolina. They had two suspiciously single senators until 10 minutes ago. Tim Scott apparently found a beard or something. All right. The one, like the most conservative member of Congress, turns out was carrying on a double life for years with another wife and family. Another conservative congressman went to Argentina to track down his mistress. This is guys. And then there's the 75-pound albino who asked Hillary Clinton a difficult question once, got a soundbite out of it, did nothing else his entire career, and sold us out on absolutely everything. And he's on Fox every night. That's South Carolina, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we can all decide that all these people won all these high national offices in that state because all these South Carolina voters were bamboozled. They didn't know. They were uninformed. Okay. If that's your copium, man, you do you. My copium is I like to know what's real because I can't do anything about it if I don't know what the real problem is. And I'm going to tell you what the real problem is. And it's not elites, and it's not the left, and it's not rhinos. The real problem is the people. The people are the problem. And that's why the people need the trial that I ranted about last hour. There are a lot of people that voted for Ron DeSantis in November of 2022 that want nothing to do with the fact that yet today, Florida's ban on abortion, the harshest in the country, which is another way of saying the bestest. The harshest abortion ban in the country. Something like, if you look at the stats, how many abortions are the result of rape and incest and occur after 6 weeks? He's banned about 94% of abortions in Florida. Can't be performed. Toughest abortion ban in American history in Florida. In Florida. Obama won twice. Florida. Where a guy that was doing cocaine off a gay hooker's ass almost beat him for governor. Florida. A lot of those people want nothing to do with banning abortion. But they're not complaining about it today, are they?
It appears not.
No. Nobody's losing their minds over it. Why? Because they were forced to see the real world consequences of the direction they were heading. There are hotel owners and restaurant owners whose family businesses, lives would be over if it weren't for Ron DeSantis and what he did as governor during COVID. Over. In other words, poop gets real quick when you're faced with that sort of pontificating about, well, so we have abortion bans at 7 weeks, 6 weeks, 14, 15. How about if you wear white after Labor Day on Tuesdays? You can all that other stuff doesn't mean a damn thing if you're like, the business my pops gave me, this restaurant that's been in our family for 100 years, would have gone out of business except for what this guy did. Stuff gets real when it hits home. It's what Ronald Reagan was tapping into decades ago. The old line that a recession is when your buddy doesn't have a job and a depression is when you don't have one. People felt consequences of the other side's ideology that maybe they were tiptoeing with. Maybe they thought sounded good. It was a siren song. It's got a good beat and we could dance to it. Maybe we could have Andrew Gillum be governor. And yeah, I'm sure in between his gay orgies, he would have made sure your family business would have survived COVID, I'm sure. It's real to them. They saw consequences of what life would be like if the people that are like, kill them all, were in control of all. They saw. And so they're like, I'm not even sure I agree with this cat on a whole host of things, but I do know if he's in charge, I get my life. We need that level of angst nationally. Because nothing less than the future of our lives is what's at stake in this moment as a culture. I'll stop now so we get to more of these. My apologies.
So back to the original submission, DeSantis and Walters, only two officials that will not
I believe
comply.
more will do it, actually.
Yeah, I will sell.
I will sell. I believe more will. I don't know how many more, but I think it'll be more than that.
Next up, Bruce Jenner-Zutter says Israel will allow a rogue rocket through the Iron Dome that will destroy the Dome of the Rock and allow the new temple to be built. Todd, your thoughts?
Sell.
I will sell. Although, this is the kind of strategic thinking that I like. I like stuff like this. All right, but I will sell. It is true that Iran might have destroyed the Dome of the Rock 3 weeks ago, if not for the Iron Dome. But yeah, I'll sell.
Next, we go to Aaron Reale. Gun control is a violation of the Romans 13 purpose of government.
Agreed. I'll buy.
Bye.
Yep.
Blake Johnson says America would be more religious as a country without the existence of professional sports.
I think it's the other way around. We had professional sports when we were a more religious country. Many of the analogies that the scriptures make, particularly in Paul's letters, are references to what were, at the time, in the era for which they were for, proto versions of professional sports. That's what the ancient world considered the Olympics. The idea of being full-time athletes. That was the only time that occurred, was in that realm. The idolatries are created inside out, not outside in. We are only tempted by that which we want. Like, I'm not tempted by another man's anus. I'm not tempted by cocaine. I'm tempted by women. I like them. I don't like other men's anuses, and I don't like cocaine. We're tempted by what we want. Idolatry comes from the inside out. Now, if your argument is that the obsession, and this is Todd's argument too, to some degree, I think, that the obsession over these things is causing us to not confront our own idolatries, on that I would agree. But the reality is, if we had a vibrant church, that wouldn't be a problem either. Idolatries happen from the inside out, not the outside in. Because if we just got rid of professional sports, we just create an idol of something else. Out of something else. Because idolatries happen from the inside out, not the outside in. It is not what goes into your mouth, okay, that defiles you, but what comes out.
Well, if the answer, that last part is important. If you can't, in writing this, fill in something there, and I hear Aaron echoing it and seconding it, if something else couldn't be in the place of professional sports, you should have not written this. But we're beyond the theoretical. This is practical physics here. And to me, I am buying that. It is obviously true that the current app, it could be something else, but it's not. It's that. And there are, again, 700,000 men that showed up to hang out for a weekend at the NFL draft, not even game, that actually proved me right. It is a huge cancer on our spiritual, emotional well-being. I wish it weren't so, because there's nothing wrong with it in and of itself, but we've made it an idol. That's undeniably true.
Next up, we go to Dueling Politics, top 10 80s action TV show theme songs. Some conversational whiplash here. Number 10, Airwolf.
I don't remember it, but here's the thing. I remember it being great. You know what I'm saying?
I can't hum it off the top of my head, but it was like, I think the chopper hum is in there somewhere. Yeah.
And you want to talk about underrated pairings. Ernest Borgnine and Jan Vincent.
Yeah.
That's on the list. I got to buy.
You don't even need to say Jan Vincent.
Jan Michael Vincent to you, brother.
Yes. You say Ernest Borgnine, and I'm in.
You stop at Ernest.
That's a second Ernest Borgnine reference in like 2 weeks.
Long live the king.
Yes.
I have no idea who that is. Number 9 is Fall Guy.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, absolutely. Yep.
8, Star Trek The Next Generation.
Correct. Yep, okay, I'll
Number
go with that.
7, Magnum P.I.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
6, Knight Rider.
Oh, yeah.
5, MacGyver.
Knight Rider's too low, if anything. I'd have MacGyver lower. But I'm okay with it being on the list.
Number 4 is A-Team.
It's arguably number 1. I mean,
dun, 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 dun. No, it's not. Dukes of
Hazzard, number 3. Miami Vice, number 2. Number 1, Greatest American Hero.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so free. Flying away on a wing in a prayer. Who could it be? Believe it or not, it's just me. I can't believe I still know the words to that. But Dukes of Hazzard and Waylon Jennings has to be number 1. Has to be.
Good stuff.
Yeah. But overall, I'm buying that list, brother. That's the dope rhyme right there. I like it. I'll buy.
Celie Ettinger says Kristi Noem will be invited to the ASPCA Puppy Foundation dinner before Steve gets to speak at CPAC or the RNC.
Yes.
That might be our best one ever. Is that our best one ever?
That's a good one.
It's very good. These are good. These are really good so far. I was worried, man, because Tiny Johnny came in hot, man. Right? And it's a little bit like if you strike out the side, you know.
These guys probably all have meetings on the side by now about what how are you bringing it this week?
Yesterday, I watched Jack Flaherty from my Tigers strike out the first 7 batters, and we still lost the game. It's like, pace yourself a little bit, okay, you know? But I was concerned. Tiny Johnny came in hot, but the follow-ups here have been good. I got to buy. That's genius. You bet.
All right, another 80s top 10 list. Top 10 1980 movies from my childhood. This is from Care Carto. So we're just going to rank their list. Top 10 1980 movies from this person's childhood. Number 1, The Princess Bride. You okay with that being on a number 1 list?
It would be
number 1 for a list like this.
I think it'd be a lot of people's number
It's
1.
my
It would
wife's.
not be mine, but I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Number 2, Stand By Me.
That would also be on a lot of people's lists.
Number 3, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
My only concern would be, is that the right Indiana Jones movie? Because Raiders of the Lost Ark was in the 80s as well. All 3 of them were.
Number 4, Back to the Future.
Of course.
Yep, you bet.
Number 5, Full Metal Jacket.
I would
That's from
not.
your childhood?
Yeah, I would not put that on. Yeah, I would
Suddenly
not
took
put
a
that on my
turn.
list.
Basically,
That's not-
I stopped watching that movie after boot camp.
Yeah, it's a disturbing film. I would not have that movie. How you could have that movie and
In
no
between.
Goonies kind of blows my
I
mind.
love this. Full Metal Jacket is in between Back to the Future and number 6, Field of Dreams.
Field of Dreams. Yeah.
What is this? Number 7, Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai.
You know what? This should not be on
Banzai?
anybody's top 10 80s list, but it is such high quality schlock. Okay, high quality schlock. Jeff Goldblum, Peter Weller. It's a meta. The movie's meta. It's a movie about a guy who plays a superhero who's named Buckaroo Banzai, who's an actual superhero and has like a crew. Okay, the movie's not very good, but it is such classic 80s schlock that it remains good. Does that make sense? Okay, it checks every 80s box. So respect for putting that on your list. I mean, it's not one of the top 10 movies of your childhood, but respect that you have it there. Yeah.
Number 8, The Shining. That's from the 80s?
This is a weird
Yep, 1980.
list.
1980, okay.
Yep.
Number 9, Blade Runner.
I mean, I think The Shining is one of the greatest movies of all time, and certainly a top 3 horror movie of all time.
But it's
Blade
not-
Runner. Okay.
This is a list we should... would you hand this to your kids? This is my childhood. The Shining?
Yeah.
No. Gotta sell on this list.
Number 10, A Fish Called Wanda.
Very underrated film. It's laugh out loud funny.
Good
at
film,
times.
but it's not a kid's film.
Yeah,
It's not.
agreed.
It's not even a 12-year-old's film.
Maybe this person means
no
childhood,
Empire, no
meaning-
Return of the Jedi.
Maybe this person means childhood as like coming of age. Well, still Full Metal Jacket. You're watching that.
Although,
when you're
you know what,
12 or
man?
13.
We thought The Goonies was wholesome, and I've told this story before. Amy and I hadn't seen it in like 15 years. We plop it in when Anna's of age, and we're 5 minutes in, and Anna's hearing all these words she's never heard before. We had to take it out of the VCR. It was a different time back then, man. Different time.
Got another top 5 list. Gen X comedies of all time. Top 5 Gen X comedies of all time. This is from the Humble Bumble. Number 5, Spaceballs. 4, Airplane. 3, Animal House. 2, Caddyshack. And number 1, Blazing Saddles. That's a pretty good list.
It's
It
pretty
is.
good, but I would sell. I don't think Spaceballs is a top 5.
Yeah, that's
It might be a top 10, but
I love Spaceballs, but I agree.
Oh, yeah,
it's not a top 5. Like The Naked Gun is a better spoof than Spaceballs. That's nowhere near there. Airplane is among the greatest comedies of all
Needs to
time.
be
Certainly
higher.
among the most one of the most quotable. The other 3 are absolute classics. But I still think you have to have. I mean, I view Idiocracy as a Gen X comedy for sure. So I think that might be the greatest comedy film ever made. It's at least it's somewhere on a list there with Caddyshack and Airplane.
This might be, with some breaking news here, this might be the first time in the history of this program where we've had a list of movies, and I've seen the vast majority of them. The only one I haven't seen on here is Animal House. Not that anybody asked or cares.
I barely remember it. I remember the speech at the end. I will not let you insult the United States of America. I mean, from Otter, I remember that. I don't remember much more of it. And Toga. Something about togas, I remember that too. That's about all I remember.
Moving on, David Welshon says the NFC North is now the strongest division going into the 2024 season.
I agree, actually.
So-
I think there'll be 3 playoff teams out of that division. I'll buy.
got some young quarterbacks who still need to play it down.
Next, Chiller says college endowments should be used to pay some, if not all, of the interest on student loans held by students for the amazing education and job opportunities they provided.
Well, I mean, this is kind of the Chris Rufo, Ron DeSantis idea, and I'm all for it.
Yes.
So I'll buy.
Buy.
Yeah.
All right, this next one, I'm going to have to be very careful with my pronunciation for this first, and you'll see why in just a little bit, especially for those who see it on the screen. This is from Alexander Rogers, top band names for this unholy trio. For those of you listening, It's three people dressed in some sort of religious garb, adorned with rainbow vestments. Are those what you call vestments,
Yes.
Todd?
Yes.
The first one, top band names for this unholy trio. First band name from Alexander Rogers. Steve is sweating bullets right now that I don't miss this pronunciation. Fagi, and Fagé. That's how it's pronounced. That's how it's pronounced, Media Matters.
You mean like Tony? Is that what he's Alexander's tapping into?
Sure.
Okay.
Tiny Johnny right now. I was so close.
Yeah. Okay.
Lost Apostles, Twisted Zers.
Lost Apostates.
Apostates, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Twisted Zers.
That's good.
Rainbow Sabbath.
Nice.
Disturbed Freebie. Yeah, that's a good one. Not Peter, not Paul, not Mary. P. Diddlers.
Oh my.
Panhaven.
Oh.
The Rolling Millstones. That's really good.
Yeah.
Fruities and the Blow Parish.
Pretty good list. It's not Tiny Johnny levels of excellence, but that doesn't mean it's bad. All right. You can be an all-star and you weren't, Hank Aaron. You know what I'm saying? So it's more Roberto Clemente maybe, but that's a pretty good list. I'll buy.
Philip Powers says 5 to 15% of the protest actors crossed our southern border.
Oh, sure. You bet. I'll buy that. You bet.
John Endicott has this.
I love how that picture just remains as we go through more submissions. Yes.
Yeah. Best sports atmospheres. Major League Baseball playoffs, ALCS, NLCS. That's pretty good. Number one best sport atmosphere.
No. Come on, man. No. So
I don't know. It's still up there in my mind. And I'm not a huge baseball guy either. Number two, the NHL playoffs overtime.
I could see that, particularly if it's the seventh game of a series. I could see that. Yeah.
Number three, college rivalry games. You got to specify football.
Which should be number one. But yeah, okay.
And number four, Major League Baseball opening day. Maybe it used to be.
I don't know.
Maybe it used to be.
Yeah, there's different kinds of atmospheres. There's a bit of an apple-orange thing.
Yeah. I'm going to sell your list. Yeah. I think there's only one thing on the list. Maybe two. And the other two I don't think belong on it at all. All right, we'll come back. As if you didn't get enough woe and lamentation from me, let's bring on the professional. Daniel Horowitz is next. Well, it's no secret, and I've been talking about it throughout the course of our show here today. We are under attack on multiple fronts. I mean, we've all seen how quickly the national healthcare apparatus instantly obeyed the Thanos snap during COVID a few years ago. Now they want to go one step further. For example, the American Medical Association is now declaring that medicine itself is imbued, marinating in white supremacy. And so therefore, standards for whom can become a practitioner of medicine need to be lowered. Now, keep in mind, they're not going to go see the people that had the standards lowered to get in. They're not going to go see them. They're going to make sure you are. They're going to go see the people who are qualified. You're going to have the people, the JV team, operating on you. That's always the goal here. You would have known about this if you were a subscriber to Imprimis from Hillsdale College. Does a fantastic job of keeping liberty-loving Americans aware of what's happening on and against our Constitution on a regular basis. You can subscribe for no cost or obligation. Get great work from the likes of Chris Rufo, Victor Davis Hanson, and more if you go to daceforhillsdale.com. Join the over 6 million Americans that subscribe to Imprimis at Dace4, F-O-R, daceforhillsdale.com. Again, that's daceforhillsdale.com. It has been too long. Let's bring him back. He is the prophet of woe and lamentation. It is good to see you again, my friend. Let's begin with your overall thoughts on watching Nazis and Marxists duke it out on college campuses around the country. This moment, what it means, what it could or may not politically galvanize. The floor is yours.
So it's funny because those who are actually biblically practicing Jews were actually a little bit offline the last couple days. So it's sort of a Jeremiah 2:28 moment for a lot of these people. Hey, you fashioned for yourself a lot of gods. Where are they? Let them come and save you. And, people like Schmuck Schumer, who has literally earned his keep in 40 years in Congress, turning America's very tolerant, very enlightened demographics, orientation of society coming out of post-World War II, and just utterly transformed it. It's actually the Schumer 1990 immigration bill that really is the biggest culprit for Muslim immigration in this country. And that's just the bottom line. Is you have a lot of people roped into it, these Gen Z retards, but the fuel that's fueling it is the demographics that we brought in, both through permanent legal residents and also foreign students. We bring in between 100 and 150,000 from Arab countries a year to our universities. And then broadly speaking, some of these big universities have more than a 50% foreign-born share, so they're not even American. And then the curricula is funded by Qatar and other similar Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood organizations. So that's what it is. I mean, go eat it. I think, to me, the contrast between red and blue America, I think this is what we need to accentuate. We need to accentuate that divide because we already have that divide. We already have a one-way civil war, and it's intractable, so we may as well benefit from it in a two-way direction. And I think the contrast that you're seeing in the blue states that have these universities, which, look, if you're in a blue state, and not just in a blue state, but in a blue state university, I can't help you. I mean, if you're a Bible-believing Jew or Christian in one of these institutions, I mean, I don't know what you're trying to do there. So this is where it's at. And, I'll tell you, Steve, on a personal level, just how interesting this is. I don't know if you heard this. Albert Einstein Medical School, they had this endowment for $1 billion. Someone left over an unbelievable endowment for free medical school tuition indefinitely. I mean, however many that covers for the next number of years. I have a niece that applied there and several other places to medical school. And I mean, you can imagine what that's worth. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's a very big deal. And they moved to Florida. And she also applied to University of Miami. She is the only one in the country so far that has given that up to stay in Florida and go to University of Miami Medical School, even though that will cost however many hundreds of thousands of dollars that is, that she would have gotten for free, because she didn't want to go to a pagan institution that has all the tranny stuff and vaccine mandates and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's what it's going to take. Mm-hmm. It's going to take a complete separation. I agree with you that it's better people see it blatantly than subtly.
My fear is similar to, all right, too many teenagers in the 80s are getting pregnant. So in the 90s, let's give them all condoms. Okay, you cut down the teenage pregnancy rate, but now STDs are skyrocketing because the kids think now they can just act on their urges whenever they want, because you're institutionalizing depravity. You're taming it to institutionalizing it rather than confronting it. Europe did this with radical Islam, and now it's institutionalized throughout Western Europe. My fear here is our rush at the mere sights of this. All right, let's put this down. So it's safe to go back and practice Marxism again and go back and forth to our indoctrination Marxist classes. We are going to tame this and institutionalize it when we had a moment right here to let people see it for what it really is and cause them to say, hell no, not happening here. And so we got Kevin Stitt dropping hate speech on Fox this morning on Fox News. Here's our bipartisan federal legislation against anti-Semitism, as if that's going to cure and what's really driving all of this. But this notion to tame it, to put a condom on it, as opposed to confront the realities of human nature and the barbarism that it's capable of without discipline. There's not too many more of these moments we have left, Daniel, that if we miss them, we're just completely out of a civilization at this point. There's only two reasons people will do the right thing: a fear of God or the fear of consequences from their fellow man. Fear of God's out the window in our realm right now. So the only other thing we have left is wow, we really can't have these Marxist and Islamists like owning our institutions of higher learning. We should purge them. Without that, I don't know what's left to stop what's happening to us.
So I think this is where we need to drive the self-separation. Now, we could be doing both at the same time. I think in the sense that on the one hand, we want to evacuate from these places, but I think that shouldn't stop us from pushing to cut off foreign visas, prohibiting Qatar from Qatar doesn't have a constitutional right to fund this stuff. So we should do that. But at the same time, I agree with you. It's sort of like the 9/11 approach, where you rather than solving the source of the problem, you exacerbate the source, and then you cast a broad net on civil liberties that just ropes everything in. So they have this legislation I'm just looking at now where they peg the definition of anti-Semitism to whatever this International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Whatever they define. So they have a page defining it, but it's not like a Merriam-Webster's definition. It's a whole page and it's kind of infinite. And this is nonsense because you don't need speech. I mean, you know, if it's speech, it's covered by the First Amendment. And if it's, occupying buildings, spaces, blocking paths, whether it's code of conduct things, which are, just a penal code for students or criminal activity that needs to be dealt with in the states. I don't understand what they're doing. But remember, these are some of the same Republican governors that have embraced refugee resettlement, which has essentially brought in people that still believe in literal blood libels, believe in this sort of Hitler, view of Jews. They brought them in wide swaths. They're very into visas. I mean, even the few that are like, oh, we got to secure the border. Oh, but we need more visas. Again, we work to build a very enlightened country. Okay, this was a country where we had very little hate relative to any other time or place in the history of the world. And we went and now attenuated that we worked so hard for and brought in people from areas that missed the Enlightenment. And then, let's not forget, Mike Johnson just put in that, and unbelievably put in the Israel portion of the bill, $3.5 billion more for the refugee resettlement contractors. Okay, these are the guys that are both doing the border invasion and also doing, Afghan Sharia resettlement. So, when I was a kid, when you had stuff flare up in Israel, you would see these big protests in Europe, and we were always like, man, it's great. We live on this side of the pond. You had maybe a couple people here and there, and now it's huge because we're like Europe. We brought in, it's a numbers game. We brought them in large numbers. It's an immigration problem. Anti-Semitism in the modern era was not native. Okay, it's kind of like a disease, you know what I mean? Like cholera and typhoid are not native to America like it is Haiti. So that sort of crappy gutter mentality was not native to America until we brought it in. And now it's mixing in with the local, native communists, and we have the worst of all.
Right. So now you have Islamist, historically based anti-Semitism, and now you've got just Marxist anti-whiteism, and of course the Jews are white. So you just put those two things together, and we're not allowed to talk about that, of course, but put those two things together, stir them in a pot, and you get what's occurring on our college campuses. All right. Before I let you go, I got to ask you about this because you sent me something this morning that I think our audience needs to hear you talk about. So while you've been out for the last few days, I don't know if you saw this or not, out of nowhere over the weekend, Trump goes after RFK Jr. and he's a schmuck, and Biden would be a better president, and his vaccine stuff's kooky. And you're like, where's this coming from? And then you see a Quinnipiac poll. Now, Quinnipiac is one of the worst public pollsters we have. But I wonder if their private numbers are saying this too, that RFK Jr. is disproportionately taking away, and by a significant margin, from Trump and not from Biden. Okay? Well, you sent me this analysis from the Washington Post today. Half of Republicans are unfamiliar with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s thoughts on vaccines. 4 in 10 Democrats are unfamiliar, but when informed about them, the percentage of Republicans who say they would consider RFK Jr. doubles. Right? And the percentage of Democrats who say they would consider him drops. Your thoughts on that?
So look, I never bought into this notion that somehow RFK was going to take more from the left, because unlike our side, the left, I have a lot of faith in liberal voters. They're not stupid. They're just not. I mean, when's the last time you saw them elect a conservative in a primary? Like our people elect liberals in every damn primary.
Well, we've got to elect this pro-life Democrat because he can win. Yeah, that never happens.
Yeah, no. And even in a lean R district, much less their base districts, right? Like we do, they don't make mistakes. So this notion that they would be confused by Kennedy, for whom the name doesn't even mean a lot to their younger base, and think this is like a Democrat or something, they're not stupid. And they understand that on the big issues of the time, he's at least posturing more where you and I are. Again, he's liberal on a lot of issues, but at the end of the day, the vaccine issue is not what it was pre-COVID, where it was kind of an eclectic issue, had elements equally on both sides that were against vaccines, but most people are for them. Now it's really become almost like, taxes. I mean, it's almost become a clear, right versus left divide in many respects. That is his most notorious issue. Okay, I mean, it's like vaccines is to RFK what trannyism is to Bruce Jenner, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, he's not brought on because people want to hear his views on Israel.
It's a calling card. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what he is. I mean, RFK, that's his issue. So the notion that Democrats are going to flock to him is absurd. What was happening was no one loves Biden. Okay, there's no support for him. There's no intensity for him. There wasn't in 2020 either. But nonetheless, they kind of still win. So you poll this far out, Trump supporters are going to have much greater intensity. But when push comes to shove, an election comes and they have a choice and they don't have election day but election season, and they have a masterful ballot harvesting operation, they're going to get their people to cast the ballots. Whereas the more Trump kind of does his thing and continues sliding to the left, the more it's going to give RFK an opportunity to peel off from him, whether you agree with that or not. So I think that is a clear warning sign, and it's just another example of how this sort of conservative media code of silence and just sit tight and hope it's all going to work out, Steve. It's all going to work out, without actually making a play down the field and changing things, changing Trump, changing his message, changing down the ballot primaries, engaging on the issues, engaging on the speaker's fight, that it's just going to sort itself out. And yeah, RFK will split the Democrat vote and we'll just win. I just don't buy it.
Good to see you, my friend. Thank you.
See you later.
You bet. Brought to you by friends over at Eden Pure. They're back with their famous Thunderstorm air purifier. It's their top-selling one that quickly destroys viruses, odors, mold, bacteria, and the components that are causing the bad air in your home, office, or garage. Thousands of 5-star reviews. Nothing holds up. Not litter boxes, trash cans, cigarette smoke, dirty diapers, teenage BO, nothing. All right? And that's why this is such a popular product in our audience and with so many of you. And now you can save $200 on an Eden Pure Thunderstorm Air Purifier 3-pack for whole home protection. Get 3 units now for under $200 with that $200 savings. Put one in your basement, bedroom, family room, kitchen, anywhere that you need clean, fresh air. Go to EdenPureDeals.com. Use the discount code Steve3 to save that big money. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Steve3 to save $200. EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code Steve3. All right, we've got about 2 minutes left, gentlemen. Closing thoughts.
COVID happened, right?
Supposedly. I have my doubts.
Half, that data point at the end, Daniel broke me. Half of Republicans still didn't know what Kennedy thought about vaccination. Like, you have to be aware and know things. How is that possible? How? If they don't know that about that after COVID, what also do they not know about, don't care about? And if you're a Republican, let's face it, how low, we're talking about things in context matters. How low is that below your fantasy football team? That statistic is just appalling. Why are you involved in politics at all? Because you just clearly don't know anything.
Why are you? That's That's basically Todd's perpetual social media status. Aaron, why are you?
We just have way too many people. I go back to what I kind of coined a few weeks ago. People, the vast majority of this electorate, either wants you to lie to them or lie with them. Mm-hmm. What they don't want, though, is to be informed citizens. I think the gist of today's show is we will either have one way or another, spiritually or governmentally, man unleashed or man unshackled. And those are two, they sound the same, but those are two different things. Man unleashed is what you're seeing. Mankind is what I'm talking about, is what you're seeing on college campuses right now. Man unshackled is when the government does its job and actually punishes the evildoer. But sometimes we need a little bit of that man unleashed, maybe if there's any chance of waking people up to what that actually looks like and saying, hey, time to do something about it.
Back at it again tomorrow. Until then, Romans 8:28.